Hello and welcome back to the Beyond the Swede podcast sponsored by the Salon Hub. I am your host, as always, Steve Cassano, and today on the podcast we have Liz Cook, an incredible hairstylist from Farmington, Utah. And in this podcast, we get to discover her story, her winding journey from doing art with her parents, and how that's been translated years later into doing art on people's hair. We get to discuss with her not only her journey within the beauty industry and how she is now in her seventh suite, but how she is transforming her business from just providing service to providing an experience and focusing on the individual that's in her chair and not just the service that she's providing. This is an incredible podcast, and we love Liz. She's got a lot of energy. So I highly recommend that you watch to the end, where she also imparts some really sage advice to those who are new to salon suites or maybe hitting a plateau. So without any more further ado, here is Liz Cook. So Liz, you've been in the industry for a minute, right? And as you are now kind of entering this new phase, I want to take things back before we get to the current state. So if you could take me back to where you started, whether that was high school, college, even before that, right? And weave me a tale of why the beauty industry and why do what you're doing now, right? Where did it all start?
Whew, a saga.
Yeah.
Well, I, like any true millennial, grew up with a couple TV shows that were very iconic for the beauty industry of our generation. For me, I grew up watching a lot of, and you might remember these. Were you familiar with the show What Not to Wear?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So I grew up watching that. And I always really, truly loved not only the, different outfits and stuff like that, which I always love that too. But I always was really drawn to the ending point where they were like, okay, we're going to redo your hair and your makeup. And how they took that person from, a whole new outfit and everything. And then as soon as they did the hair and makeup, it was like a totally different transition of a person.
Right.
And I just really loved, power would be a little bit of a harsher word, but it's really the only word that comes to mind. But I guess
impact.
the impact and like the ability to be able to just change like that and change, and not even change in a way that's like, oh, the old version was, crappy, we need to change it, but just to enhance and make everything better, just like that. I thought that was just the absolute coolest thing. And I also grew up watching America's Next Top Model, and I was obsessed with that show for a long time. And I always particularly loved, I would watch like the first couple of episodes where they would like get all the girls and everything. And then I would like skip ahead to the makeover scene, like the makeover episodes. Right. And I just loved, I think I loved more so the process of it and not necessarily like the ending result, because everybody, does it differently. And some were great, others were not, but
some were choices.
Some were definitely a niche kind of vibe. But I always loved that enhancement of being able to do that and like completely change your image, your career, everything just based off of how you look. And I think for me too, I grew up in a artist-centered home. Both my parents are still active artists.
And what do they do in terms of their artistry?
This podcast is sponsored by the Salon Hub. Have you joined the Salon Hub community yet? Salon Hub is the first community designed to support salon suite professionals in their endeavor to become successful entrepreneurs. The community is free to join, so sign up today and share your experience, get answers to your questions, and ask for feedback from your peers as we all aim to grow in 2024. To sign up, visit thesalonhub.social and click the community button at the top. We'll be waiting for you.
So my mother is a graphic designer, and she's owned her own business now for, as long as I've been alive. So 33 plus years. Wow. And then, and she always worked from home. So she did a lot of freelancing and whatnot, which is probably where like the independent business ownership for me comes from. Sure. And then my father was a teacher for, 15 years. And he ended up retiring and becoming a full-time artist, which is something he's always loved for his entire life. So he he does a bunch of different mediums, from sculpting to painting to charcoal to sketching. I mean, you name it,
Wow.
he has it. So I kind of grew up around that, and I was, really kind of enveloped in that from a very young age. And I grew up painting, I grew up sculpting. Fun fact about me that not a lot of people know is I was actually homeschooled from 7th grade through high school.
Whoa.
And I was very, very lucky to be able to kind of just focus a lot of what I did in my daily activities being getting my hands in either sculpting, painting, or even getting as far as just creating and building things. I mean, at one point I was taking apart a 76 Volkswagen Bug with my dad just to take it apart to see how we can fix it and rebuild it. Like
That's
I've
so
always
cool.
been creating things is
Yeah.
what I mean. And it's been nice. It's been fun. And it's been a crazy journey to be able to come through that. And then I went through high school and I was told to go to college, and my parents love it when I tell this story. But I actually wanted to go to hair school right out of high school. And I had a best friend who her mom went to cosmetology school, but didn't graduate. And so she introduced her daughter, my best friend, to all of the wonderful, eye-opening experiences of Sally's Beauty.
Sure.
So I, against my mother's wishes, dyed my hair in my best friend's bathroom, a really awful copper brown.
Awesome.
And I had hot roots. It was great. I, at that point, thought that I was alive and I had discovered the greatest thing ever. And it was all downhill from there. So I actually did I want to say it was about 5 or 6 years of junior college. I actually went for psychology, teaching graphic art and design, and business and marketing, which I actually use in all the things I do now. And I joined beauty school at, I want to say I was 25 when I joined, 24, 25. Okay. So I joined late compared to a lot of people.
Yeah.
But that definitely did not stop me.
I was going to say, so through your college career then, were you kind of still getting involved in like the beauty space across all of those mediums? I mean, obviously there was a lot there to unpack, right? Like you studied a lot of different things, which I think each and every one, as you look at them, can definitely apply to what you end up doing, right? Like you are kind of a therapist, so psychology makes sense because people just come in and spill tea all day long, right? Knowing how to do that and like manage that and not hold on to that when someone's having a bad day. But then also all the way to, the business and marketing stuff, which, you are running a business. You're a business owner at the end of the day. So it's probably really great. But in between all of those times, because obviously 25, right? I'm not going to call you a late bloomer by any means, but at the same time,
it definitely was. I was one of the oldest ones in school.
I was going to say, because a lot of the time we see right out of high school, right? Or in high school, even through a trade program or things like that. But, while you're in the college years, we'll call them, at least that's what I'll label them for now. Were you still finding ways to dip your toe? Were you still dyeing your hair in the sink along the way? Or was it more of like okay, I found out what I didn't want to do. I did like doing that. Now let me go chase this down. Like, what was that decision like? How did it weave through your college career?
It's actually kind of it's a fun question. Growing up in a creative household, I definitely was, and especially I think homeschooling kind of goes to it too, which, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't afraid to try something. I wasn't afraid to create something because, if I didn't like the way, it looked, I just do it again and do something else. And I think that's kind of that was a lot of my thought process in college. I'm severely ADHD. We know that now. And at the time, I would get almost to the end of graduating with a major, and then I'd be like, I'm bored, and do a whole new thing again.
Oh boy.
And I just, my poor parents.
Right.
I actually wanted to go to hair school right out of high school, but like I said, my parents were like, no, you need to go to junior college. I mean, they both had their bachelors, and, they were definitely, they came up in that time of like, no, you ended up getting, your bachelor's degree, you ended up going to college, like all of that. And I think for them especially, they just were like, you don't really know what you want, you're young. And I think they were totally right. I mean, to be completely honest, I was very, very, very young. And
Mm-hmm.
I think doing college first probably saved me. Like
Yeah.
I was still dyeing my hair. I was, I grew up in the scene era. Like I was what you would
Hell
call a
yeah.
Hollister emo kid.
Sure. I know the
Cause
type well.
yeah, like I wasn't really allowed to like look like a scene kid, but I was definitely, I guess you would say, like turned on to the creativity of it. And
Sure.
so, I was cutting my own hair, I was dyeing my own hair, I was dyeing my friend's hair in our bathroom. I was a
Nice.
serial box dyer for, oh God, many years.
And then you were shown the correct way. And
Yeah. And I think even being shown the correct way, it was like, I kind of had this like, oh my God moment where it was just like, wait a minute, I could do this and like actually really make a living. And I think for me, I always wanted to do art. I was actually really on track to be a graphic designer to take over my mom's business, which I was naturally
sure.
very good at.
Mm-hmm.
This is after I decided I wanted to like start going into teaching, which ironically enough, now I've been an educator too. So I'm a fourth generation educator.
Wow.
Um, it's in
Yeah.
our blood apparently.
It definitely
And
seems like it.
yeah, yeah. I think for me going into hair school later on, like I said, definitely saved me. I look back now and I'm like, I was not ready. I don't think I would have
Mm-hmm.
taken it seriously enough. But it also was great because for me, I really struggled in school. And I mean, we always hear
Yeah.
this with the neurodivergent, kind of group in our industry, but I really struggled. Like, unless I was super into it, like, I really didn't get good grades. And it wasn't because
Yeah.
I just wasn't interested and didn't want to do it and didn't care. It was just harder for me to really absorb. And I actually got into hair school kind of on a whim, ironically enough,
Okay.
too. I know. As the onion peels, you find all the layers.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
But I moved to Utah with my ex-husband, and when we moved here, I actually right before moving was looking at hair schools, and then got into a almost life-ending car accident.
Oh my goodness.
And I don't know if I told you this actually. So I got into a
No.
life-threatening accident, and was not my fault. A kid pulled right out in front of traffic, and I slammed into him head on at 50 miles an hour.
Jeez.
And I do have life-sustaining injuries from it. However, I've learned to really adapt very well.
Yeah.
And out of that injury, I ended up getting married and like, coming across like just things in life and put kind of hair school off the map for a minute. And then we moved
Yeah.
to Utah, and I figured, oh, I'm probably never going to do it. However, I wanted to go to a Paul Mitchell, and the closest one where I was living in California at the time was in LA, and it was just too far.
Right.
And so I ended up, ironically enough, the stars aligned, and I moved to Ogden, Utah, and ended up being less than 5 minutes down the road from a Paul Mitchell.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's serendipity
Fate,
if there ever was.
yeah, like fate was like, listen, babe, we got you.
Yeah. That wasn't the right Paul Mitchell school for you. This
Yeah,
one's
it
the one you
was.
need. Yeah.
Oh, it was perfect. And I'll never forget it. I stepped into that school and I felt like, I mean, for me, I had a great hair school experience. It felt like for me that hair school was finally the place that I could figure out how to be an artist, but get paid well for it. And it
What a concept,
also,
right?
right. I mean, you're kind of a starving artist in some cases,
Sure. I mean, everyone
but
is in their own business when they start it,
yeah.
right? I mean,
Oh,
not everyone,
absolutely.
but most that
I mean, at
bootstrap.
some point you are, at some
Yeah.
point. But I think for me, it was like all of a sudden I really learned the value of resiliency. It was like, oh my
Sure.
gosh, I can actually do this and I can make a living at it, but I'm also good at it.
Yeah. I
Like
mean, that's big, right?
it,
Getting,
it was, oh my gosh, it was like it all just came naturally to me. And,
Right.
especially like color theory and all those things with a painting background. And it was like, oh my God, I've been training my whole life for this.
Right.
So all I had to learn was the chemistry, which ironically enough, like that little bit of science to it, I love.
Mhm.
And so for me,
Wow.
it was just a match made in heaven, literally. And I took everything that I learned in college, applied it at a later time in life, and then, oh God, within probably a year and a half of getting out of hair school, I mean, I
Mhm.
was already, getting my name out there and really learning how to take it to that next level.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
So,
so that's really where I want to transition here a little bit. So like obviously ending up in hair school sounds like an odd and extremely graceful confluence of your past, right? That kind of
mhm,
attached all these little interdisciplinary aspects of what you've been kind of piecing together along the way, and in all of the, I would call it the branches that you've kind of gone down, right? To then come back together into this like
mhm.
odd, seemingly perfect sphere of what you love to do. And then you take that, you find it, you see that you're good at it, you understand that it provides you joy at the same time, which is obviously
So much joy.
uh what do you do with that? So you graduate Paul Mitchell. What happens next?
Oh gosh. So I went to work at a tiny salon in Layton, Utah, and it was the absolute most toxic job I ever did.
Oh my gosh. Great
um,
intro to the beauty
oh
industry,
yeah,
right? Like
it was a great
oof.
intro. But again, serendipitous and fate got involved. I worked there for about 8 months, and
Mhm.
I think the owner recognized something in me, which I will
Mhm.
always kind of pay a tribute for. Um, the owner really saw that I had potential, but I just needed to be disciplined enough to know how to use it.
Sure.
And I was so starving hungry to learn everything that, I
Mhm.
mean, at one point, it was a commission salon. And at one point, she gave me a key so that I could basically just come in like it was my own suite, clock in on the
Nice.
computer, and start, really working. And I mean, it definitely didn't teach me healthy habits, that's for sure.
Sure.
It was very unhealthy for me. I started working, 60 to 80-hour weeks. And,
Jeez.
I just got my hands on everything and anything. And I'll never forget the first time I did a balayage there right out of school. Because actually, back that up a little bit. Um, when I was in hair school, all I wanted to
Sure.
do was Vivids.
I
That was
I
what
could
I
have
wanted to
guessed.
do. Oh,
Coming from a post-scene kid, of
oh
course
yeah.
you want Vivids, right?
All I wanted was Vivids because I never was allowed to have them.
Sure.
And I loved it. I loved the fact that you could like literally paint on hair.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I came up right in that perfect sweet spot of 2016, 2017, of when Pulp Riot was just getting big. You
Yeah.
had Matrix was starting to get bigger with their Vivid colors coming out a year or two later. I mean, and social media was just coming out. And so I kind of took all of that into this brand new salon that I went to. And,
Yeah.
I really built all my own clientele, like immediately right out of the gate. And I did it all myself. The salon really didn't help much. And I went from there, and I was really burnt out. And I unfortunately went through a divorce. And the
Mm.
divorce was not terrible. I mean, it was pretty cut and dry, so I got very lucky. However,
Yeah.
um, I met my now husband in hair school. And so
Wow.
he was a barber. I wish I could say it was like spicier than it really was, but I was married at the time, and we were all friends and everything. And I ended up, leaving school. He was still in school, and I ended up getting a divorce. And fate beheld, he ended up working at the salon that I was at, and
Wow.
we ended up just becoming friends and getting closer and closer and whatnot. And we had started dating, pretty soon after my divorce, to be honest. And
Hmm.
we went and vacationed down in Arizona, where his family is. And that led me to my next destination, which was Scottsdale, Arizona,
Oh,
because
geez.
when we went, here's the wild part. When we went down there to vacation, we came back, and when I was down there, his mom was like really trying to get us to move down there. And I was like, no,
Yeah.
I started this new job. Like I just got out, and her son just graduated barber school. Like, I don't know. And
Mm-hmm.
that was the first time I'd ever seen a suite.
Oh,
And
okay.
I was like, cause they weren't here in Utah. And
Right.
so this was 2018, the very beginning of 2018. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember going down there, and his mom was like, you could have all of this, and
All this could be yours.
yeah, all this could be yours if you just leave. And
Just come to beautiful
yeah,
Scottsdale.
oh my God, it was the first time. I'll never forget that feeling. Like I walked into where she got her hair done, me and my boyfriend at the time, and
Mm-hmm.
we walked in, and I was like, oh my God, this looks like an office. Like, what is this? This is weird.
Right.
And it was just a husband and wife, and she was talking to her hairstylist at the time, the wife, and the wife was
Mm-hmm.
talking about how her and her husband put down $70,000 in cash to buy a house because they literally just worked
Jeez.
in this little 10 by 12 room.
Uh-huh.
And I just remember going, what? Like, excuse you? And they were like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's no big deal. Like, we just work in here and we work together. And I was like, huh? That's a thing? And then all of a sudden her husband started talking about how he worked part-time at a salon in Scottsdale, who the owner was part of Pulp Riot.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, huh?
Yeah, wow. Talk
What?
about more serendipity,
Oh
right?
my God. My boyfriend looked at me and he was like, yeah, we're moving. Because I just looked at him with like that drooling look in my eye of like, it's right
Yeah.
here. We could be here,
Right.
and it was wild. We ended up deciding, okay, we're going to drive back to, Utah, and then we'll move in September. It's now April. Like we'll give
Mm-hmm.
ourselves time, this is where fate changed. I posted one photo on my Instagram at the time because I was taking all these classes to build my Instagram, and I was posting my work, and I used a hashtag Arizona hairstylist because I wanted to start, dipping into that community, right?
Right. Just to test it. Totally
just to
get it.
test the waters and like start meeting people and whatnot. We get about
Very
halfway
smart.
back to Utah, and my boss texts me. And she's like, yeah. And she's like, hey, when are you guys heading back? And I was like, oh, we're about, 4 hours out, blah, blah, blah. She's like, call me when you get, back. So we get back. We literally just got to Ogden, just got to B-dubs so we can get some wings and like chill after a 10-hour drive. And she fires us on the phone.
Whoa. Just for a hashtag.
Plot twist, fires us on the phone. She tells me,
crazy.
Yeah. Well, mind you, I was her bread and butter. I was bringing in over 10 grand to that salon a month.
Jeez.
And I was only seeing maybe 3 grand a month. And I was supposed to be 50-50 commission.
Wow.
Yeah. So I had just started figuring out that the grass is greener on the other side.
Yeah.
And she saw the hashtag. And this is where like the toxicity comes in. I think personally, she just wanted to scare me into staying. Like the threat of firing,
Yeah.
But
you were like, okay, see you later. Called her bluff.
Yeah, I mean, at first I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And then at second I was like, well, okay. Like,
yeah.
You're
not the only salon in town. And
yeah, and at the time, my boyfriend, he was working there kind of part-time, and she was like, oh, I know he's with you. You can fire him for me too.
Jeez.
And I was like,
what
oh
a
my
treat
God.
she must have been. Yikes.
Oh, it was great. She basically told us, come in on Friday, pack your stuff, you're gone. So I had 4 or 5 days to like really just be like, I'm leaving. And on top of that, I had to, at the time it was like, I have to spin this.
Sure.
So we basically were like, well, we got an opportunity we couldn't turn down. Like, we're leaving. Sorry. First
Yeah.
time I'd ever been fired in my life. And I was devastated.
Sure.
And
It's not a fun thing, even if it is the
no,
best thing for you, right? Like,
yeah, and I think going home that night, I kind of sat there and I was looking at my boyfriend. We're both just sulking.
mhm.
And I just was like, you know, the universe just kind of gave us an out.
Yeah.
And he was like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, we don't have kids. You
Yeah.
know, we're not married. I'm definitely not married anymore. I was like,
Right.
we don't have a job. Like, we already paid for this month's, of our apartment. Like, why don't we just give 30 days and let's just leave?
Yeah.
And we kind of were like, well, we don't have any money. We just paid all our bills. Like, it was the worst timing ever. And so we ended up convincing our landlord at the time that they could just let us out in 2 weeks and keep everything.
Wow.
And I packed my husband's truck with everything I owned. I threw away half of my life. And I literally had less than $20 to my name. I packed up him, me, and my cat. And we drove overnight to Phoenix, Arizona, in the heart of Scottsdale. And we set up camp living in his mom's office for an entire year.
Wow. And then did you go to
And
that same salon suite that you had visited
well,
prior?
here's the wild part. So I didn't even have time to turn over my license.
Wow.
Like,
Yeah.
I didn't even have
Fair.
time to even get anything. So I go
Mhm.
down there. I have no money. I've never asked my parents for money in my life. And so I get down there. I'm feeling so defeated because here I was, getting noticed, and like I was the token alumni child of the Paul Mitchell that I went to in Ogden, and now I'm jobless, have no current license, and I'm stuck in a city in my boyfriend's office, mom's office.
Mom's office. Yeah.
Yeah, 27 and divorced. And definitely not the way I thought my life was going to go. And I
Sure.
had a really hard time with it, but I was like, you know what? The one thing we know how to do is stick our nose in the dirt and just hustle.
Yeah.
And I called my parents and I explained what was going on. And I just said, I am not trying to just ask you for money. I was like,
Mhm.
I just need you to buy my license. I was like,
Yeah.
I promise that that's all I need. Get me that and I will get to the moon and further.
Right.
And the wild part is I totally expected him to say no just because I never asked before. And my dad was kind of hesitated, which made me just like hold my breath. And
Yeah.
he was like, yeah, we would love to help. And I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. Like, thank you so much. Like, Kim Kardashian ugly crying.
Sure.
And they were kind enough to send me a little extra. And my husband went to work at Starbucks down the street, and we lived off of one car. And I got my license, and then I found out from that couple that there was an opportunity to assist the owner of that salon who was part of Full Riot.
Cool.
So yeah, I went there, was there for about 4 months. That was an awful experience. And then after that, I ended up pretty much going to a little tiny booth rent salon in the middle of Scottsdale. Was there
Mhm.
for maybe 6 months or so. And then I just was like, you know what? I want a suite. I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And I mean, not gonna lie, I was terrified. I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I literally I made it work. I remember it was Halloween of 2019. I'm looking at my husband and I'm like, I want to do this, but I don't know if I can. And he just looked at me and he was like, well, how much is it? And people are going to scream when they hear this, but it was my own little personal salon suite in the middle of Scottsdale, Arizona, and it was only $180 a week. Yeah. Yeah, it was great. I miss those
What a
days.
deal. Yeah.
I miss those days. And
I think
thought
we
at the
all miss
time
those days.
oh my God, at the time I was like, oh my God, like it's $40 more than my booth rent. Oh my God. And now I look back and I'm like, oh God, if only.
Right. So
But
where was the first salon suite?
so it was in the Phoenix Salon Suites, which is its own company. It's not part of Phoenix, Arizona, but the Phoenix Salon Suites in
Phoenix without the O.
Scottsdale.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And it was off of Tatum and Thunderbird in Scottsdale, Arizona. And it was just this tiny closet of a room in the very back right corner. And I'm talking, there was like, oh God, there was like, I want to say like 40 something rooms. So when you walked in, you had to go like down the hallway, around the corner, down the second hallway. And it was like, I was in the very, very back in the right-hand corner.
Yeah. Just Pan's Labyrinth until you get to the back end. Yeah.
I was in the very, very back. And it was like, I was so excited. I remember getting in that little tiny room and I felt like I was like, I own this, which I don't, but like, I own this, this is mine.
It is your small little fiefdom.
Oh yeah.
Right?
And, at the time I told myself all I need is a mirror and a chair. And I still say that to this day. Sure. And at that point in my career, when I was at that small booth rent salon before the suite, I managed to get my work noticed internationally at that point.
Cool.
So I had only been out of hair school for, a year and a half, not even 2 years. Wow. And at that point, I was on the Riot Squad with Pulp Riot. I was Modern Salon Top 100 for 2019. Wow. Allure magazine reached out to me and did an article on my hair color, which went all around the world and still does to this day, which is really cool.
That's crazy.
And it was funny because I did all that. And then I went into this little tiny closet room and I was like, I made it. And I had no idea what I was doing.
But in a way, right, you did make it. I mean,
I did. I made it within, it was probably 4 months later. I already upgraded to a window room. And then and then COVID happened.
Sure.
And
the dark ages.
Oh, the dark ages. We were shut down for 55 days. And oh God, I'll never forget when we came back because Arizona did it so wild. We got only 4 days to figure out that we were opening.
Wow.
And so my phone was going off like every minute. My weeks for 8 months after that, my weeks looked like Christmas. It was exhausting.
Sure.
But
also how validating, right?
Oh my God. Yeah. It was, I had never made so much money in my life.
Sure.
That year alone was the first year that I broke 100K.
That's awesome.
And I was like, oh my God, I've been a stylist for like not even, 3 years and I'm already 100K. Like I thought I was on top of the world. And then I got the opportunity.
And you did that with 55 days out of the year that you couldn't work. That's even more impressive.
Not right? Wild.
2 months out. Yeah. So you did 100K in 10 months, essentially.
Yep. I was at 100K because January to March, we were doing off and on closings. So it was actually almost 3 months because oh my God, I hated it so much. So I was like, I'm going to take 2 weeks off to like see how the world is going to go. And literally in the middle of it, it shuts down. I was so pissed. I was like, you could have told me I would have been working for 6 more days.
Ugh.
But oh my God. Yeah. COVID was life-changing for me. After that, I ended up getting an opportunity because people, moved out of the suites. People couldn't afford it, blah, blah, blah. And there was a suite that came open in the middle of the complex. Same place in Phoenix Salon Suites. And I was able to have 3 chairs in it.
Wow.
And I figured out based off the bookings that I had, which were outrageous, and the money I was making, which was stupid money. And I opened a 3-chair salon and Color in Maine was born. Yeah.
And did you have an assistant, two assistants? What was the deal?
Beyond the Suite podcast is brought to you by the Salon Hub and their new web design service offering. If you are still using your booking software as your primary website, it might be time to switch it up. While booking services are great at keeping your appointments streamlined, they don't allow you to truly show off your brand in a unique way. We here at the Salon Hub are trying to change all that. We are now offering customized 3-page websites to help you make sure that your digital home is on brand and effective. We can integrate with any booking system you have, so you don't have to change your internal processes, and we make sure that your website reflects the vision and work you've put into your salon brand. Plus, we are making these websites affordable. To get more information, please visit us at thesalonhub.social and we'll get you started.
So at that time, I was kind of in and out of assistants. I wasn't, in my opinion, I hadn't really learned how to have one yet.
Sure.
But I
mean,
did,
you're still
like,
only, what, 3
have
years
one.
out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I had one, but not really. It was just somebody who worked there who ended up becoming a really good friend of mine. Both of those people that worked in that salon with me ended up being in my wedding. And
It's great.
yeah, it was fun. But I kind of had an assistant, kind of not. I had a lot more people shadowing. Like I kind of went that route, and I was starting to teach classes at like the local salon centric. And at that point, I had just started getting picked up by Milkshake, which is a Z1 Concepts brand out of Italy. And they were becoming really big. So then I ended up transitioning over to like a lot of more brand work. And, you know, then I started really diving deep into learning how to advertise for my space and get clientele for that.
Cool.
And then really starting to kind of, I guess you would say, mature into my own branding and what that looked like.
Yeah.
And kind of moving away from like the trendiness of what your branding could be and more authenticity of like who I am, which has transpired over the years to actually be pretty consistent, which is really nice.
That's
And
great. Shows you know who you are, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And from there, I went to a even bougier spot because I had to, at the time, I had to shut down my 3-chair salon because COVID, again, as you know, came back in December of 2020. And unfortunately, one of my workers got COVID. Actually, 2 of us got COVID. I didn't for some weird reason. Wow. And the same, no one's going to believe me when I say this, the exact same week that they got COVID, we had someone come in with lice. No joke.
Jeez.
So we had to shut this down, which at that point, Arizona was looking head first at another shutdown for 30 days.
Yeah.
And so I kind of just talked to the owner and was like, I would rather quit while I'm ahead than quit because I have to.
Yeah.
And so
do it on your terms.
Yeah. So because last time it wasn't, it was, you know, out of all of our control. And I think it was just a false sense of control.
Yeah.
I did that. And then I went into a small salon that needed a little bit of help, tried to hire me as like their educational director. They didn't know what they were doing. Turns out they ended up getting shut down real bad. And I was there for like 5 minutes. And then I just was like, no, I'm out. There's too much illegal stuff going on. And I opened up my final suite, my favorite suite I ever had in the Desert Ridge area of Scottsdale, which is like northeast Phoenix, I believe. And I was there for a little over a year and a half. I loved that space. It was amazing. I think that was my turning point of realizing that I could be a sustainable business on my own.
Yeah.
And I loved it. The advertising was fantastic. I was building so quickly. I was getting about 4 or 5 inquiries a day.
Wow.
Like,
and what kind of advertising were you running though to get that kind of response?
So at the time, it doesn't work as great anymore, but at the time I was doing Google ads.
Sure.
So I really optimized my my search engine viewing. And so I really went in and I built up my Google platform. I built up my reviews. I really built that up to kind of be that foundation to, you know, my image as a whole. And then I started kind of capitalizing off of that by using my accolades that I had earned in my career as a bonus points. So it 100%. Was like not only, and it's really what you should do, you know, like they don't necessarily matter at the end of the day to the client, but they really kind of do. it
Sure,
just
they're
kind
proof
of,
points, right? You're
yeah, it
building
just
trust with
really,
someone you've never met, and that
yeah,
helps. You're getting
yeah. And
vouched
it
for
really
it.
solidified it.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of Google advertising. That paid off for a while. But I think for me, the biggest thing, and it's something that I'm currently working on, is I really built up very personal relationships with my reps.
Mm,
And I built very personal relationships with the product stores.
right.
So anytime I walked in, everyone knew me by name.
That's
I
good.
never had to show my app. They just knew my phone number by heart. I was teaching classes outside of those product stores. This is before Salon Centric actually started launching their classrooms.
Mm-hmm.
I took a lot of free hours and taught a lot of classes outside of after hours, and it was wonderful. It really harnessed my teaching. And then
Yeah.
I started really getting involved with brands, and I think that was kind of what also launched my advertising, because I was associated with that brand. So if you searched for it, I came up.
Right.
So it was kind
Yeah.
of like no matter what, I would come up, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's
And
what you want, right?
yeah,
That's again, you're stealing a lot of brand trust, right? Like they're
mm,
taking it from you to solidify their
it's a
brand.
give
You're
and
taking it
take,
from them.
definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%. Utilizing
absolutely.
that's hugely strong if you can. Not a lot of people go that route, which I think is also one of those where it's like, okay, yeah, I want to get in a partnership with a brand because then, they're going to do so much for me. And it's like also you're going to do a lot for them. So if you focus on that
Yeah,
give and that take, you're more than likely going to be able to utilize that relationship a little bit better as
I
it
think
sounds like
that's,
you did, right? Like all the
yeah,
local
yeah.
areas, right? You were giving them things, you were providing
Oh,
education in their
absolutely.
spaces. And that's why they would also give you things in return. It wasn't just a entitlement kind of a vibe. It was more of a
No, not at
give and
all. Not
take
at all. I think it's a really good
relationship.
point to bring up too, because um, I think it's a point that a lot of people don't really realize when it comes
Hmm.
to, advertising yourself as a business. I
Hmm.
think a lot of people look at what I did and they think it's just unattainable. And the thing is that um, everybody is always looking for something. You don't have to be everything for that person to be looking for. You just need one thing.
Yeah.
And if you can be that one thing for that one person and do it well, they're never going to forget it. And I
Right.
think that having all those different interpersonal connected relationships, I think for me, because I always call myself, I'm like a master networker. Like if
Yeah.
at some point, if you name somebody, I probably know them. Like I either
Hmm.
have said hi to them, had a conversation with them, or somehow have worked with them. Like I'm always that person that like somehow knows everybody. And I
Yeah.
really made that known in my city, where it was like, I went to the local stylist events. I helped with different companies. I mean, at the time, I was on the very first Air Professional team. And so I got to spend a lot of time with Jenny Strebe and learn a lot from
Wow.
her, and went
Yeah.
to all those air gatherings. I still call them family, though I love them.
Hmm.
And, I, with Pulbright and whatnot, I did a lot of, free education events. And I think a lot of it is, yes, time is money, but time is so much more invaluable than anything. And if you
Absolutely.
really dedicate just a little bit of your time, I'm not saying go do a bunch of shit for free. Like I'm not
Yeah.
saying that, because everybody always thinks that's being said. It's not that. Do it strategically
Hmm.
and you'll get something out of it for you too. Like I'm not going to dedicate my time unless it also benefits me. And
100%.
so, but I think that kind of got blurred in that sense of that time frame in our industry, where it was like, oh, you have to do all these things for free or someone will notice you. And it's
Yeah.
really not that way. You just have to do it strategically enough that it pays you back.
Yeah, I always like to view it as an investment. Like, where are you investing your time, not just
Exactly.
spending your
Exactly.
time, right?
Yeah.
There's a difference between
Yeah.
spending and investing, and you need to
Yeah.
invest in the right hours away from your
Absolutely.
salon strategically, as you just mentioned. I think that makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense.
Like if
Um,
I'm, going to teach and it's going to be free, like it might as well be for people who are big in the industry who can also keep talking about that.
Yeah, or at
you
least
know,
make it worth your time, even if you're not sure, right? Like make sure that
film
you're
it, make
making
content,
connections.
advertise it,
Yeah.
you
At the
know.
very least, get content out of it. At the very
Hmm.
most, right? Learn about other people, make that
Yeah.
connection with someone else who then knows who you are, who can connect you with other things that you're interested in. Because I always say, like, if you show an interest in someone else, the rule of reciprocity on average does take hold, and they'll want to take an interest in what you're doing and what you need,
Yeah.
right? So I love the power networkers that always end up saying, what can I do for you, right? Like, if what are you looking for, what can I help you
Oh
get,
yeah.
right? And then it's
Absolutely.
like, oh, I really need this. Well, what can I help you get then? What are you looking for? And then it's like, well, actually, I'm into
Yeah.
this and this is really what I'm focusing on right now. And then
Yeah.
they know they have a direction where they can help you
Hmm.
and you can help them, and it like
I'm a
really just
huge
solidifies that.
connector.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
like
that's
if you
really.
ever need anything, like I'm that person that's even in the suites that I'm at right now. I'm like, hey, I'm Liz. If you need anything, like let me know. You'd be
Yeah.
shocked how much I could probably help. And it's not that I'm the all answer ends all. It's just you never know when you might cross paths with somebody that might
Hmm.
benefit you or them in the future. And it might end up crossing paths again years down the line, and it might help you even more then too.
Yeah, it's a
So
lot of bridge building and opening up of doors because you never know who's going to come through that hallway kind of vibe. I want to get up to date really quickly. So I want to,
yes.
after
Yes.
Arizona, right? We're back in Utah, right? And you've gone through some salon suites in there, and you've built up a presence back in Utah where you went to
Hmm.
school, right? And now you've just moved for, I think, what is this? If we're keeping count, total the fifth time in a suite, maybe six.
Number 7.
Lucky number 7, then. We'll call it lucky number 7.
There we go.
Now that we're on version 7, what are some things that you did this time that are basically learnings from the times prior that you didn't want to like repeat a mistake, or you wanted to make sure that it was specifically done in a certain way so that you weren't kind of going backwards? I want to know those big lessons learned from those 6 previous iterations. What have you taken with you along each one? Maybe you don't have to go one by one, right? But as a whole, as you're
Yeah.
setting up this new space, how are you thinking about it differently than maybe you were in the first version?
Oh my God.
The Beyond the Suite podcast is presented by the Salon Hub and the Salon Hub's Salon Marketing 101 course. The Salon Hub Marketing 101 course is designed to teach you the building blocks of marketing that you can apply to your salon business so you can get more clients in your chair in less time. So if you haven't taken a marketing class before, this is a great place to start. To join, all you have to do is go to learning.thesalonhub.social to get started today.
Well, I mean, anybody who's listening who owns a suite would probably laugh when I say this, but storage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure.
Storage is the tell all end all of a studio. And I think I've gotten smarter with my ergonomics with being
Mm-hmm.
in the suite. I think for me, the biggest thing is, and a lot of people, they actually have this with like stores and whatnot. It's the direction. It's kind of like it's a funnel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even in a small room, I've now learned that I have a funnel. When you come in, the chair is placed specifically so you go directly to the chair, to then go directly to the shampoo bowl, back to the chair, and then the checkout. It's very
Mm-hmm.
specifically placed so that way it's not, number one, it's not chaotic. Um,
Sure.
Number two, it doesn't feel like you're imposing in my bedroom. And
Yeah.
I think number three, it's just that driving force behind, how you set up your business. Yeah, decor's cute. All of that's fun. I love all that. I love the different, styles and all that. But at the end of the day, it's really that planning and that kind of methodical, like planning out where everything is
Yeah.
going to go to benefit you as a business. And I think for me, this is going to sound kind of funny, but not putting a giant emphasis on where my retail is going to go.
Okay.
And the reason for that is because now, as a seasoned stylist, I don't think this necessarily applies to younger stylists, but
Mm-hmm.
me using the product behind the chair and showing them is more important than my display.
Yeah.
Because it will sell itself regardless of having this massive, giant, store display. Right behind me, right there, is my retail. right next to my mirror. So again, I'm using it. I can literally talk about it, right? But notice how
Sure.
I only have 3 shelves. Like I don't
I,
have this giant thing.
100%. I think it also speaks to like, yes, they say things will sell themselves. However,
Yeah.
in your position, right, you are a seasoned professional and that you use things and educate them
Mm-hmm.
on what you're doing. And really, it's the education part and then being in
Absolutely.
full view. So you are actually actively participating in that sales
Yeah.
process. You're just not doing it in an overt way of like, you really should buy some, right? It's
Yeah.
more of, I'm going to tell you the story behind this and why I'm using it, why it's great, and all of the decision points that I made to get here to serve you better. So why
Yeah.
aren't you serving yourself better, kind of a thing? And then it's just there
As
to present.
100%. I mean, from a marketing standpoint, what it does is it actually hides the sale into the experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Because no one
instead
loves a
of
hard sale. No
no
one.
one
No
does.
one.
Even if it's me, I'm like, ew, no, go away.
Right.
Um, but my checkout is right back here, right down over there.
Sure.
And so
Yep.
I have that, the door's right there. And so I have it right next to the door, but I have no retail next to it. I have
Mm-hmm.
nothing but just their checkout because it's a very intimidating process. And I've learned that over the years. I've had my suites before where it was like the checkout stand is on the retail stand. And now they're like, kind of peer pressured into buying something when they already bought something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I've kind of learned over the years that I think the biggest thing for, version 7 is that I'm not only selling my services, I'm selling me.
Yeah.
And people at the end of the day, and it's always been said, people will always, come to you, even if you do a shitty job, as long as they like you, they'll come to you. Unfortunately, in some circumstances, that is true. But I think for me, I've really perfected with my suite that version of really kind of, I'm going to try to articulate this correctly, but
Mm-hmm.
I really kind of figure out how to bridge the gap between stylist and client friendship, retail sales, and the experience of the service I'm giving you. And really kind of
Mm.
putting it all together, but still creating an educational inverse or kind of, I don't even know how to put it, but like a interactive experience to
Yeah.
where
I
it's
think that
not
makes sense.
just, yeah, it's not just, oh, hey, come on in. What do you want? Cool. Highlights. Dope. And then it's like, okay, cool. Pay me. Bye.
Right.
It's more of, I tend to double book and I've learned this over the years too. I think this is another really big one for me. Double booking for me, you can do it in a way that's eloquently done. You can do
Mm-hmm.
it in a way that's not chaos where you're running around like a chicken with your head cut off. You can do it in a way that's interactive for everyone in the room. And so I have
Yeah.
a lot of clients because, that whole saying your vibe attracts your tribe. And
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of clients that like I've now purposefully double booked together who've now become friends who look forward to seeing each other at their double booked appointments with me.
Yeah.
But the way that I've designed everything, it's all very meticulously done out to the time frame. So I think that for me has been a big thing with learning into each space I go into. Just as I transition in my career, it's very, very, very important that I have my space ergonomically set up so that all of those systems can be put in place to be very thorough while also
Mm-hmm.
managing my time of what I do. Because I do mainly color. So I've
Yeah.
got, appointments that are 3, 4, 5 hours at a time. And, I might be doing a rainbow teal on one while I'm also simultaneously doing a brunette on the other. And
Right.
meanwhile, I've got a blonde coming in 2 hours, like I'm splitting my brain into all these different ways. Meanwhile, I'm like, oh my God, how are you? Like,
Yeah.
and I've got an assistant that I'm delegating. And I also need to make sure that, I have a lunch break. And kind of side noting off of that, I think the most important thing that I've changed is making sure that I schedule in a lunch break. I think
Yeah.
that for me
Not
has
just
been the
running
biggest.
into the ground. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think location has a lot to do with that too. I think, as
Yeah.
we all know, location isn't the most important, but I think this new space that I'm in right now in Farmington Station, I'm surrounded by not only shopping, but I'm also surrounded by food. And so it's a really great way for me to actually be able to bring that in. And I have kind of a general rule. Not a lot of people can do this, but if you're in my chair for more than 4.5 hours, I feed you.
Oh, wow. You're like an airline.
Because 100%. And I always say it like this. It cracks me up, but I'm like, my job is to not only make you feel more beautiful, but to also keep you fed and watered. Like, that is my job.
Yeah.
So it's incredibly important. I think that snacks and drinks goes a long way, but it can go even further if you take into consideration that it would be really freaking rude for you to be doing an 8-hour color correction and you took a break for lunch, but they have to sit there.
Yeah.
And they get freaking graham crackers.
Yeah.
They're paying you hundreds of dollars.
Right.
You know?
I love the way that you view this. And, as most people talk about location, it's like, okay, I just need to be near, clients and things like that. And obviously, you have experience going through
than that.
Right. So there's a lot of opportunities built into location, right? Where amenities that you can easily pull in for not a lot of extra effort that can
100%.
expand your experience that you're granting your clients to a whole nother level, because no one's just willing to step outside. One, their suite, or two,
100%.
their exact flow of how they were taught how to do something, right? There is a lot of opportunity, as you're doing, right? You're not just providing a service, you're providing an experience with a lasting effect that also you're adding value through education, not just transformation, and then also connection. I mean, there's like 9 layers that you're kind of going through.
It's an onion in here.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I think the biggest, a big, like they say in Shrek, there's layers to this. It's like an onion. You peel back,
that's exactly
you peel
where
back,
I was
you
going.
peel back.
But...
Yeah. But like, here's a good example. So I'm sitting in front of my window right now and I'm staring at a Fizz drinks. And for anybody who's outside of Utah, Fizz is like Utah Starbucks, but with soda. And so you can literally go in and get, a cherry Coke with vanilla, with raspberry puree and like coconut cream. Like, you can build a whole soda. It's pretty cool. Yeah, Utah, the Mormons have to have something. So, what's funny to me is like a Fizz drink, a 32-ounce Fizz drink is like $3 something. So I'm going to send my assistant down there, which is like a 5-minute run. Go grab a Fizz, come up here, and both me and my assistant are going to drink it in front of my client, who gets a little mini bottle of water.
Yeah,
but is paying me luxury top dollar for a service that they're getting because they believe in me. But yet I get to act like I think it all comes down to that thing of like, we've been taught this in beauty school, but we all forget it. It's not a mannequin that's in your chair. It's a person. And yeah, they're paying you, and sometimes you do get sidetracked and you have conversations outside of them there, but it's a person. They're thinking, they're judging, they're taking everything in and soaking it all in. I want you to feel like you are, even if we just met, I want you to feel like you are my new bestie while we both drink our Fizz and talk about what's going on in your life, because it all comes down to your image of your hair and how you feel.
Yeah.
Like,
that's what you're in the business
all comes
for,
down to that.
right?
Yeah. And
you're in the business of personal transformation. I mean,
100%.
That's it.
I think that's kind of where, back in my, my building blocks of who I am was the whole, sitting down was like the what not to wear. Ted, he's a really famous hairdresser. His name is Ted. He sits them down and he's like, and of course they teach you this in school, but it's like, it's the face-to-face thing.
Yeah.
They sit you down and they're like, what can I do for you? What's going on in your life? Why are we at this crossroads of who we are? And why are we in this place that we're stuck? I can do things for you. I can help you. However, what's going on that's underneath the surface?
Yeah.
Like, why are you a bright blonde and you're coming in telling me to dye your hair black? What's going on, honey?
Yeah.
Like,
this isn't just a transformation. This is a cry for help. Yeah.
100%. Like, girl. Like,
well, I mean, you're exactly right in that, when we teach marketing through the Salon Hub, right, there is a whole layer deeper than you can go, rather than, okay, it's not that you just want shorter hair or you want a color change. There's a reason behind why you think that that's a solution to a problem that you have, right? Is it
Yep.
acceptance? Is it to stand out more than you are? Is it to gain
Yep.
attention from someone specific, right? Like
Is it a
there's a
breakup? Is
reason.
it a death? Is it a marriage? Is it a newborn
Right.
baby? It's there's so many things.
What chapter are you turning, right? And
Yeah.
then how is this actually helping you solidify that new chapter typically, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, there's something else to be said for maintenance and blah, 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 right? Like you are
Yeah.
investing in your own belief in your self identity and what you've created. So you do want to maintain at times. But for
Yeah.
transitional services, they are coming after something so much deeper and so much more. And the fact that you even asked that question, I think, is amazing because so many people don't, right? They're just like, okay, sounds good. Here's the plan. I don't want
Yeah.
to damage your hair. And they're worried about the hair, which they should be, your profession for sure.
Yeah. I
But
mean, I'm
also,
worried about the hair, but I'm also worried about the psyche behind the hair,
that's exactly right.
considering
And
that
ugh,
it's just it all comes down to it. It's not a wig that you can just put on and take off. You might be going
yeah,
through a bad breakup, but honey, we're not going to be grieving in 4, 5, 6 weeks. We might be, but we're not going to be grieving as hard. And you might look at yourself in the mirror and not even recognize yourself. I
yeah.
mean, I'm in the business to empower people and to
Mm-hmm.
you know make them feel, and I always say this too, and I think it goes into the marketing hand in hand, because I definitely say this in how I word things, but I want you to feel seen and heard.
Yeah.
I don't want you to just turn around and it's like, oh my God, you just have a new color. Look at you. It's so good. Oh my God. And then bye. Never talk to them again. Like, I
Right.
want you to feel like you can come into my, like, if you're, let's say one of my clients is in Farmington Station, come upstairs and say hi.
Right. I want you
Like,
to come see me.
I
Yeah.
have a revolving door. I am 100%. You can come up here. You can say hi. I will be more than happy to say hey. I mean, by all means. And I think that translates into that whole point of, like you said, with the marketing. Like, it's more than just, hey, I'm here, pay me.
Right. Yeah.
Anybody want a balayage? Like,
Right. Like, hey, I am your guide through this transition. And
yeah,
I can be the one that's going to support you not only in that transformation, but what lies underneath that and why
absolutely.
it's happening. Well, we've gone through a whole lot of stuff today. We're nearing
We
the end
have.
of our run time. But before I let you go, there's something that I always ask folks that are on here, because I think it is really powerful or really empowering for folks who are in a position of just starting out or maybe hitting a plateau in what they're kind of doing. And so I kind of want to open it up as an open call for advice or one, two, maybe three things that that you feel to be true, and that if you focus on these or if you stand by this type of methodology, you're going to be able to at least make a shift in the positive. Any type of
Yeah.
advice, again, for anyone new or maybe plateauing, because that's really where the most frustrating parts can be in this career.
Um, two of them are sayings.
Okay.
One of them is a creativity exercise. So the
Great.
first two sayings, the first one is, the best things in life are on the other side of fear.
Mm-hmm.
It's, and not to say that if you're afraid of it, like, go do it. For some people that might not be the answer, but fear is the same feeling of excitement. It's the same feeling, just directed a different way.
Yep.
And if you run the numbers and you can do it, you're just afraid to do it, just do it.
Mm-hmm.
Just do it. It's not forever. You're not buying a house, but it was probably the absolute best decision I could have ever made to go into suites. I think for me, especially, I have a lot of mental health struggles that I struggle with, and I love people, but I don't love people that much. And it's great for me to blossom in my own way, but I was afraid of doing that because I was afraid of being alone. And you're never truly actually alone. You're surrounded by your clients. They are your support system. You're surrounded by your other people in here. And if you're afraid of transitioning, just do it. My second saying is, if a door closes, I'm going to find a window. Like, I'm going to find one. And
Sure.
if there isn't one to find, I'll make one. Like, it's
I love
a
it.
true tale of nothing is ever finite, absolutely impossible. There's always going to be a different way to do it. It might not be the best decision for you. However, going in whatever direction you want to go, if something closes, then obviously that's not meant to be. However, you can find a window and do it a different way. You know,
Right.
failure is never really actually failure. You just found a way to not do it.
It's very true.
That has really kind of like shifted me into that mindset of I'm not stuck doing something forever. If I find a different way to do it, dope. If it doesn't work, cool. We'll shift and go with something else.
Yeah, you've learned something, right? At the
Yeah,
very least.
exactly.
So
And learn something in terms of, you know, resilience, or learned something in terms of obviously what not to do. Like,
yeah.
I think running a business as a whole is very much a game of that didn't work, so I'll find this. Well, that didn't work, so I'll find this. Well, that definitely worked, so I'll go that way. Like, it's a constant game of shifting and adjusting.
Oh yeah.
So, you know, if you fail at something, which, I mean, I've had studios that, in my opinion, have failed. I've had things that I've done in my career that have failed. However, I really didn't fail it. I just figured out a different way to do it better.
Yeah.
So it's shifting that mindset, because what you manifest, and I think a big thing about it is manifesting. When you manifest what you want, it's already yours. It's just the timing. But you also, as much as you manifest the things you want, you're also manifesting the things that you also are complaining about. You're still having that happen. So I think a big thing is just, you know, if a door closes, there's always a freaking window, and I'm going to find it.
Yeah. Just because you don't make it through the maze without hitting any dead
Absolutely.
ends doesn't mean that you failed the maze.
Yeah, no, not at all. And I mean, it's as long as I have a chair and a mirror, I can do my absolute best work. You don't need all the bells and whistles immediately. You don't need to have all these things right now. It comes in time. Don't give yourself that immense pressure of, oh, I'm opening my first suite and it has to look perfect. Like, it's okay. You're going to evolve. It's going to change. But, you know, the process of how you get there is probably the most absolutely beautiful part of it. I mean, I always say there's beauty in the chaos. You know, nothing in nature is absolutely perfect. And then my third thing is, it's going to sound kind of cliche, because like it's kind of goes in the light of like vision boarding.
Sure.
But go on Pinterest. And I was actually taught this by somebody that who was a mentor to me that I really appreciated. And go on Pinterest, put on your brand brain as a whole. If I were to go onto a Pinterest board and it was only colored by Liz, right? As a business model, not as like, you know, outfits or things like that, but as a business model, what would that look like? Color story, quotes that you find that would be great for the morality of your business.
Yep.
You know, precision timing and whatnot. Color story is a really big one, honestly, because color story really kind of helps plan the mood and everything. Furniture wise, what are things that you love? Like, what are just things that you love that would encapsulate that as a whole, and putting yourself into the shoes of being the client who's reaching out to you.
Yeah.
I think that for me has been something that I wish I would have known a lot sooner, because I always built it as if, and you want to love it yourself too, but I always built it as how I would want it. You can do that to an extent. It also has to be what your client is wanting that you're attracting.
It has to resonate with the people you're targeting.
Yeah. Again, it leads you away from, you know, your space becomes your bedroom. Like, this is my business as a whole. I'm putting my business hat on and I'm decorating and doing everything as if it were that business. So go on Pinterest, create that mood board, and just keep adding to it. keep adding, keep adding, keep adding, because you never know when you might use some of those pins for a cover story for a reel. You never know when you might use those pins as a photo that you want to do a really good caption on. You never know if you might want to use those for within their rights for the use of, photos on your website. It all follows your brand story. It's a lot easier way to do it, in my opinion, than it is to traditionally get magazines or whatever print out, and make a vision board that way. But it's always
the 90s era collage theme.
Yeah. I mean, I still do it from time to time, but
Sure.
But yeah, my biggest advice, keep it simple. Create the vision board. Less is always more. Really think about when you walk in the door, if you were a client, where do you go? Are you playing this weird dance of like your client is trying to get in, but you're standing there? Is the seating inviting? Is there a place to even put their purse? Because that's what I'm struggling with right now.
Right. It's the little things, the details of the flow. Yeah. I totally get it.
Yeah. My wall looks like a 4th grade class got out and is going to recess sometimes. But yeah, it's all in the details, but keep it simple. That's my biggest piece of advice. And if any of you out there listening are really thinking of pulling the plug and doing it, just do it. You're gonna really thank yourself later. And if you don't, cool. You figured out a way to do it that you don't like, and maybe you really are a salon person. That's okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Great.
But do it so that you know.
Yeah. Because then you're never gonna know. And then there's regret.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm talking to a lot of people about that now, and it's like, just do it, girl. Just get it. Do it.
Yeah, if you got the book, you should do it.
Yeah, I'm the bad influence. It's like, do it. Go for it.
Liz, thank you so much for your insight, your story, sharing with us today. It's been an amazing ride, at least for me, and it will be for everyone else who listens. Before we let you go, I would love you to shout out whatever you want, whether it's your website, your Instagram, where people can find you.
Oh my
gosh. Tell people how they can get at you, because it's a fun story, and I'm sure there's going to be people that will be looking for more.
Yeah, no, definitely follow me on Instagram. It's Colored by Liz, COLORED. And I would definitely, check me out on my website, coloredbyliz.com. I guess not necessarily shouting myself out, but more again of if people just have questions or comments or really want to know more, like, please feel free to DM me. I am an open book. I'm not one of those people that will just let my DMs sit forever.
Great.
Just if you have questions, comments, anything, like, please reach out, follow me on Instagram, and create that Pinterest board.
Hell yeah. Well, again, thank you so much for spending time with us today. And again, your story is awesome, and I can't wait to see what this new version 7 turns into.